Tony Curtis was born Bernard Schwartz on June 3, 1925 in the Bronx, New York, to parents who came from Hungary. His childhood was very hard. His father, Emanuel Schwartz, was a tailor, and his mother Helen had mental health problems. The family was very poor, and Curtis often talked about being hungry as a kid and wearing clothes that didn't fit right. But even when he was young, he really wanted to escape that life and do something amazing. Movies became his safe place, a world full of sparkle and dreams that he wanted to be part of. When he was a teenager, Curtis joined a local street gang. But his life changed when World War II started. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1943 and worked on a submarine support ship in the Pacific Ocean. This time in the military, he said later, taught him self-control and showed him there was more to life than just the Bronx. When the war ended, Curtis used a government program called the GI Bill to study acting at a drama school called the New School in New York City. That's where he learned his craft and changed his name to Tony Curtis, a name he thought sounded fancy and movie-like. By the late 1940s, Curtis's amazing looks, dark hair, and natural charm got the attention of Universal Pictures, which gave him a contract. Hollywood quickly noticed him. Even though his first roles were small, and often just playing good-looking soldiers or small-time bad guys, Curtis's star quality was obvious. He worked really hard to get better at acting, wanting to prove he was more than just a handsome face. His big break came in the early 1950s with movies like Winchester 73 in 1950, where he acted with James Stewart, and Son of Ali Baba in 1952, which helped make him a leading man. As the 1950s went on, Tony Curtis became one of Universal's biggest movie stars. His mix of charm, humor, and ability to show feelings connected with audiences. He starred in many hit films, including Houdini in 1953, acting opposite his first wife, Janet Leigh. The couple became one of Hollywood's favorite pairs, beautiful, talented, and loved by fans. Their marriage gave them 2 daughters, including actress Jamie Lee Curtis, who would later continue her father's movie career. But behind all the glamour, their relationship had problems because of fame, long times apart, and Curtis's big dreams. Curtis's career reached new heights as an artist in the late 1950s and early 1960s. His acting in Sweet Smell of Success in 1957, opposite Burt Lancaster, was eye-opening, a dark, serious role that proved he could do dramatic acting. He followed that with The Defiant Ones in 1958, starring with Sidney Poitier, a powerful movie about racism and human strength. Curtis got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor, a moment that proved all his hard work and his wish to be taken seriously as an actor was worth it. Then came Some Like It Hot in 1959, the film that made him famous forever. Directed by Billy Wilder and starring Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon, the comedy is still one of Hollywood's best movies ever. Curtis's fast thinking, perfect comedy timing, and great chemistry with his co-stars made the film a movie people still love today. He later joked about his famous kiss with Monroe in the movie, saying that kissing Marilyn was like kissing Hitler, a comment he later explained was just playful joking. Still, the film secured his place in history as both a comedy genius and a movie icon. Throughout the 1960s, Curtis kept taking on different kinds of roles, from adventure movies like Spartacus in 1960 to fun comedies like Operation Petticoat in 1959 and The Great Race in 1965. His charm came naturally, his style was perfect. However, as the old Hollywood system changed and younger stars came along, Curtis started getting fewer big roles. Still, he remade himself by playing character parts, appearing on TV shows, and following his deep love for painting, a talent that would become a big part of his later life. Tony Curtis's love life was as colorful and dramatic as the movies that made him a Hollywood star. During his life, he got married 6 times, with each relationship showing a different side of his complicated personality and his endless search for lasting love. His marriages were often what people talked about, mixed up with the glamour and chaos of his movie star life. His first marriage to the beautiful and talented actress Janet Leigh started in 1951 when both their careers were at their peak. Leigh was already a rising star with a contract at MGM, and Curtis, who was a handsome young actor at Universal International, was quickly becoming one of Hollywood's most wanted leading men. Their marriage was a true Hollywood power couple match. Two beautiful people whose movie star appeal matched their real-life appeal. Even though studio bosses warned him that getting married might hurt his heartthrob image, Curtis listened to his heart. The marriage gave them 2 daughters, including future actress Jamie Lee Curtis, who would later become a star herself. However, the glamorous Hollywood life was hard on them. Both were busy with their careers, spending long periods apart, making movies on different continents. The stress of fame, along with Curtis's affairs and the temptations around him, slowly broke down their relationship. After more than 10 years of marriage, they got divorced in 1962, ending one of the most celebrated marriages in Hollywood's golden age. Curtis found love again soon after with Christine Kaufman, a beautiful 17-year-old German actress he met while filming Taras Bulba in 1962. Their relationship caused a lot of talk because Curtis was 38 at the time, more than twice her age. Despite the gossip, their connection was clear. They got married in 1963, and Kaufman became not only his wife, but also his connection to a new group of European fans. They had 2 daughters together, but their marriage didn't last long. By 1968, their relationship had fallen apart because of Curtis's constant work schedule and his problems with fame and addiction. Kaufman would later talk kindly about him, saying she never stopped loving him, even after their divorce. In 1968, Curtis started his 3rd marriage, this time to Leslie Allen, a young model and hopeful actress. This marriage, which lasted until 1982, was one of his more steady relationships, going on for 14 years, longer than any of his earlier marriages. They had 2 sons together, and during this time, Curtis was moving into more grown-up movie roles and TV appearances. However, the problems that had troubled him, fame, restlessness, and a constant need for excitement, showed up again. By the early 1980s, his relationship with Allen started to fall apart, and the marriage ended in divorce. In 1984, Curtis married Andrea Savio, an actress and former ice skater who was more than 40 years younger than him. Their relationship was passionate but rocky, marked by Curtis's ongoing fights with drug and alcohol problems and health issues. Even though they cared deeply for each other, the huge age difference and different lifestyles finally made the relationship impossible to keep going. After 8 years of marriage, they got divorced in 1992. A year later, in 1993, Curtis married Lisa Deutsch, a young lawyer. However, this 5th marriage was very short, lasting barely a year. Curtis later said that the relationship had been rushed, a decision made more because he was lonely and afraid of being alone than because they were really right for each other. Finally, in 1998, Tony Curtis found lasting friendship and love with Jill Vandenberg, a horse trainer and charity worker who was 45 years younger than him. Their age difference made people raise their eyebrows, but by this point in his life, Curtis seemed to have found peace. The couple moved to Nevada, where they shared a love of animals and started the Shiloh Horse Rescue together, a place for abused and neglected horses. Jill stayed devoted to him until his death in 2010, and Curtis often said she brought stability and happiness to his later years. When Tony Curtis reached the age of 85, he had lived a life full of fame, heartbreak, starting over, and thinking about his past. The movie idol who once captured hearts in the 1950s and 1960s was no longer the handsome young star some like it hot or the defiant ones, but he had never lost his charm or his honesty. In his later years, Curtis became very open about his life and the women who had shaped it. Among them all, one name stood out: Marilyn Monroe. Speaking with the wisdom of age and the clear thinking that only comes after many years of soul-searching, Curtis once said, "She was the only one who could do that to me." Those words showed more than just looking back fondly. They spoke of a deep emotional connection that had both excited and troubled him. Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe first met when both were rising stars in Hollywood. Curtis, the handsome, fast-talking young actor from the Bronx, and Monroe, the glowing blonde whose innocence and sexiness fascinated the world, seemed pulled together by an unspoken understanding of each other's dreams and weaknesses. They both came from difficult beginnings. Curtis, the son of poor Hungarian immigrants, and Monroe, an orphan who had lived through instability and loneliness. Underneath the glamour and the studio-controlled images, both wanted love, approval, and escape. Their paths crossed many times before they worked together. But it was during the filming of Some Like It Hot in 1958 that their relationship reached its most complicated and intense point. The film, now thought of as one of the greatest comedies ever made, paired Curtis and Monroe in scenes filled with humor, chemistry, and tension. Off-camera, the two shared a tangled history. Years earlier, before Monroe's marriage to Joe DiMaggio and later to Arthur Miller, she and Curtis had a passionate love affair. It was secret, short-lived, and made complicated by the pressures of fame and studio politics. Yet the connection stayed with them. When Curtis was cast alongside Monroe in Some Like It Hot, the old feelings came back, but so did the frustrations. Monroe's emotional fragility and her famous habit of being late on set tested everyone's patience, including Curtis's. It was like kissing Hitler, he famously joked when asked about their kisses in the movie, a comment he later admitted was said in anger, not because it was true. Many years later, he admitted, "I was wrong to say that. I said it out of frustration." The truth is, Marilyn was mesmerizing. She had this power over men, not just because she was beautiful, but because she was vulnerable. You wanted to protect her even when she drove you crazy. In his final years, Curtis often talked about Monroe not as an icon, but as a woman he once knew, fragile, brilliant, and haunted. He described how she could switch from bright joy to deep sadness in moments, how her laughter could light up a room, and how her loneliness was never far behind her smile. "There was something about Marilyn that got inside you," he said softly in one interview. "You couldn't forget her. I never did." Their affair, though long over, left a permanent mark on Curtis. Even after multiple marriages and countless relationships, he still thought of Monroe as a one-of-a-kind presence in his life. "She was the only one who could do that to me," he admitted, talking not only about the emotional turmoil she caused, but also about the tenderness she brought out in him. Monroe's combination of vulnerability and sensuality affected him in a way no other woman could. She reminded him of the pain and beauty of being human, something that even fame and fortune could never erase. When Curtis thought about his past, he often wondered what might have happened if things were different. He understood that both he and Monroe were too damaged, too ambitious, and too controlled by Hollywood's machine to find peace together. "We were two lost souls trying to find our way," he thought out loud. Maybe that's why we connected and why it couldn't last. By the time of his confession at 85, Curtis had made peace with many of the ghosts of his past. He had seen empires of fame rise and fall, had survived scandal, addiction, and starting over. Yet, when he spoke of Marilyn, his voice carried a tenderness that time could not weaken. "She wasn't perfect," he said, "but she was unforgettable. Every man who knew her fell in love with her a little, and I think she knew it." Curtis's final thoughts on Monroe were not those of a bitter old man, but of someone who had finally come to understand how deep their shared humanity was. Behind the movie star images were two people wanting acceptance, both running from their pain in the bright lights of Hollywood. "She was the only one who could do that to me," Tony Curtis said again softly. And in that confession was a lifetime of love, regret, and memory. Proof that even in a world built on illusion, some connections are forever real. Rumors had long existed that their on-screen passion had spilled over into real life. And in his later years, Curtis admitted it was true. "We were lovers. Yes," he said, "we found each other in the middle of all that madness. It wasn't a grand love affair, not the kind you write about in books, but it was real, and for a time it was everything." He claimed their affair continued quietly, even while Marilyn was married, and that their connection was driven not by lust, but by a shared need for understanding. "She could reach inside me and touch something no one else could. Maybe it was because she was as broken as I was." Tony also revealed that Marilyn had become pregnant during their affair, a claim that shocked Hollywood historians when he made it public many years later. "She told me she was carrying my baby," he said, his voice shaking with the weight of time. "But she lost it. I never knew how to comfort her. We didn't talk about it after that." We just drifted apart. Whether that sad claim was true or changed by memory, it was clear that for Curtis, the emotional wound stayed open. When Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, Tony Curtis was heartbroken. I cried for her, he admitted. I didn't go to the funeral because I couldn't bear it. I didn't want to see her in a coffin. She was light, pure, golden light, and I wanted to remember her that way. For the rest of his life, he carried both the guilt and the tenderness of their connection. He married 6 times, loved many women, yet none ever seemed to fill the space Marilyn had once filled. Looking back, Tony Curtis knew their story was one of Hollywood's most bittersweet legends. 2 stars burning too brightly, too briefly in a world that demanded perfection and punished humanity. She had the power to make me feel alive and to destroy me, too, he said near the end of his life. That's what I meant when I said she was the only one who could do that to me. No one else ever had that kind of hold over my heart. And in that quiet confession, at 85 years old, the actor who had once been Hollywood's golden boy revealed that beneath the fame, the laughter, and the countless roles, Tony Curtis had never truly stopped loving Marilyn Monroe.